Hey guys, it's Drew again. You know, Jackie Robinson once said, "A life is not important except for the impact that it has on other lives." And if I could sum that phrase up in one word, that word would be legacy. And today, I want to talk about the legacy of someone that we lost this last week. Today, I want to talk about my friend, Billy Shaw. So let's check it out. Now, like I mentioned, someone passed away this last week. Someone who had fame, who had accolades, who was an amazing athlete. And just to earmark it, it's the same week that Pete Rose passed away and Lee Tiant. And as baseball fans, we instantly knew those names. And while Rose especially was polarizing one way or the other, you know whenever you're watching this video, this is the week that it was filmed. But I want to talk about a football player, Billy Shaw. Now, Billy played for the Buffalo Bills from 1961 to 1969 for 9 seasons. And out of those 9 seasons, 8 times he was an AFL All Star. He retired just a month before the AFL and NFL merged and became what we now know as the NFL. In 1999, he was voted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's the only player in the Hall of Fame that never played in the NFL. And you can go on and you could look at his statistics, you could look at his career, you can look at the accolades of the people he played with and played against. But Billy retired, well, a year before before I was even born. And he went on and had his life. He got a career. He retired at the age of 30, but he passed away at the age of 85. For 55 years, he wasn't a football player. He was a dad. He was a grandfather. And eventually he was a great grandfather. And what I got to see when I knew Billy is I got to see the impact he had on those around him, not his accolades. I never saw him blocking. I never saw him running. I never saw him doing what he did on the field so excellently. But what I did get to see was him sharing a handshake, always with a smile on his face. If he didn't know you, he would just sit down and talk to you if you wanted to about football, of course, baseball, life, your kids, your house, community, politics, whatever. He was just a friendly guy. He was a guy that I never knew anybody that would be walk away and be like, "Oh man, Billy was in a bad mood today." Billy used to love to go to shows. He went to the National. He talked about how much he loved the spectacle and the amazement of it. He loved to go to little shows. He loved to give speeches. And he would go and he would share with people. And his real passion was kids. His passion was youth. In fact, he was highly involved in the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. He would speak constantly with students. He would go and do seminars and he would go and do speeches. He would answer fan mail. He would answer letters. He would give autographs for practically no charge. But what he did charge, he donated all that money to the Fellowship of Christian Athletes to help kids around the country, especially within our community, though, to be able to advance academically, athletically, as well as spiritually and socially. And Billy loved people. I remember him telling a story about one time he went down to the little town in Mississippi where he grew up, and he went to the high school that he went to, and he gave a speech to the students, which was not uncommon for Billy to do that. And afterwards, he was meeting a lot of the kids and coming up. Well, when Billy was there back in the 50s, it was segregated. Of course, not anymore. But the football players from the current team had come up. And there was one player in particular he talked about. He was a young man, African American kid. He was super excited. In fact, he was shaking with anticipation to meet a football player that was famous, that was a Hall of Famer, you know, and the kid was shaking. He was visibly excited, and he came up and he got his photo op and he shook his hand, and the kid started to cry. He started to break down because the emotions were too great. And of course, as a high school kid, a football player, he was embarrassed. He was embarrassed that he couldn't control his emotions with this great man. Well, Billy saw this. He understood this. He put his big arm around this kid, told him it was okay. He said, "You know what? You're a champion in my book." And he took off his ring. He took off his AFL championship ring and said, "Will you hold it and we can pose for the camera?" The kid was ecstatic. He took the ring off and they held their rings up together. Billy always had a championship ring on one hand and he had his Hall of Fame induction or member ring in the other hand. Both of them were beautiful, big, the sports rings that we know. And he took a moment to understand the excitement of this kid, to understand the embarrassment that this kid had, to understand that this was a once in a lifetime opportunity from this poor kid in this poor town in a little rural place down in Mississippi, that this was his opportunity to connect with this kid and make an impact. And that's a legacy. That's the legacy that Billy had. That's the legacy that all of us have the opportunity to have. You know, the Bible talks about how we should, as believers, have someone that we look up to, sort of a mentor down to us that we can learn from. We have somebody that we can walk with and talk with, challenge each other with, sort of an equal on an intellectual or whatever level. And also someone that we can pour into, someone typically younger than us. That's, I believe, the call for all of us, whatever your faith, your belief system, it doesn't matter. We're people. We're designed to love each other, to be loved. We all love when we are loved. Why wouldn't we want to love others? So if you think about, well, who am I learning from? A mentor could be someone at work, could be someone in your community, in your church, or even in your family. Who am I equal? Who am I challenging? Who are we iron sharpens iron with? And then who are you pouring into? And that's a lot of the times where we sort of fail as people. We forget to pour into younger people, to a teenager, to a kid, to be able to take those life lessons, those opportunities to share and to say, hey, you're okay. It's okay. I love you. You know, and understand that they're going to fail, but that's an opportunity for them to grow and to teach them how to love others. All of that, that is what Jackie Robinson was talking about. That is a legacy. And when I talk about, or when I think about what I witnessed with the opportunity and blessing that I had to watch Billy Shaw on a daily basis built a legacy, not to build himself up famous, not because of his accolades as a football player, but rather because he had his accolades as a football player, he used that to impact those in a real way that never played football, maybe never even liked football. So what are you doing? Are you pouring into those around you? Are you taking the opportunity to learn those, teach those life lessons? Or are you shaming people and saying, well, that's not the way it should be, or that's not the way it has to be, or if you just did it this way, it'd be right? We don't have to be right, but we are supposed to love. So take those times to love those around us. Take those times to look at others, not just your kids, but people around you. It may be a kid at a grocery store who's having a bad day. Let me tell you, if you've never worked retail, retail is rough and you don't get paid well. So take a time to be kind to those people. To your server when you go out to a restaurant, even if they mess up a little bit, give them some grace. Take time, share some love, share some opportunity, build your legacy. Not that you can live on it, not that you can ride high on it, but that others can see it and learn how it is to love, to forgive, to show grace. That is what I believe we're meant to do. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate your patience. And until next time, you guys be good.